like I sort of start the seminar with that. It's like, my name's Jess Fraser and I'm good at jiu-jitsu. Like, I might not be good at life stuff, but I'm good at jiu-jitsu and I'm here to share that with you. Like, so, and I'm okay with it now. And I think that it's important for definitely the women in the room to hear me say that.
Hey, this is George Free and welcome to another Martial Arts Media Business podcast. I have a repeat guest with me today, Jess Fraser. How are you doing today, Jess?
I'm doing good. Welcome to my living room.
Awesome. Welcome to my semi-decorated office.
Yeah, I was just saying I had some banners too, but I feel like this is much more natural setting,
Exactly. Well, natural behind me would not look that natural, so we'll just leave it at that. Well, welcome back to the show. So, I mean, it's been quite a journey. We in the 50s. I'm not sure where this episode's going to lie in numbers, but the last time we spoke to you was episode 13. And if you want to have a listen to that, martialartsmedia.com/13. And lots has happened in your jiu-jitsu journey and your events and everything. So it's going to be great to catch up. And I do recall the last time we spoke, you were a bit of a nomad. You were traveling the world, basically living in different locations and doing all that. So I guess that's perhaps a good point to start. What's changed? What's been happening in the life of Jess?
Oh, wow. Heaps, like last time we spoke, I think was like just over a year ago. So like sort of just before camp last year. So that's what I do. I run Australian Girls in Gi, and each year I run a massive summer camp. So Australian summer being January, February, or December, January, February. And so last year it was in January, and this year it was in February. So I've just finished another one. So last time we spoke, we were heading into one, and I've done two since then. So that's like a routine thing that I do every year. And aside from that, again, I actually weirdly went back and traveled to the same places that I had just traveled to 2 years ago. So, I kind of revisited Canada, America, went back to New York, trained at Marcelo's again, saw Paul Schreiner, all that kind of stuff. So the year was sort of a repeat, but in so many different ways. And definitely last time I spoke to you guys, and I do invite you to listen to the other podcast, the first one that we did, because I did this morning just to make sure that I wouldn't totally repeat myself, because I tend to, black belts get the same stories. They tell them over and over again, and I've become one of them. So last time I spoke, I was using the language of I'm 37 and I'm old and I'm broken and maybe competition is over for me. And I think that sat in my mind a lot after we spoke, but not because of how we spoke, but just it was something that I was thinking about a lot at the time. And then I ran my camp, and that was really exciting. We had such a great time, like the January camp last year, and it was very successful, and it was the last one that I will hold in Victoria. So it was kind of a farewell to that campsite, which was fun. And during that, all of the coaches that I'd hired, so there's some really elite women here, obviously, that are winning world championships and stuff overseas. And I, of course, asked them to come on board to showcase their coaching and their information, their technique and stuff at camps every year. So during camp, all of those women went off to do the Abu Dhabi trials. So I was sort of I was in this situation where I'd sort of become mum and the kids were going out to play, and it was hard, I wasn't jealous, but it was just well, shit, I love jiu-jitsu, and I used to be a competitor and I wish I was there, but I'm doing this thing for the community and I value both really highly. And, I sort of sat with that for a while of trying to be okay with that. Like my friends going away and winning the trials and then coming back and joining me, and I just wanted to sort of be them. I wanted to be able to attend and compete and do everything. And so a couple of weeks later I was asked to go up to Sydney to help Hope Douglas prepare for Compodio. So I'm a little bit bigger than her, even though I'm smaller than her, shorter, bigger. But, you know, like I've got a really aggressive jiu-jitsu style, so I went up there and helped her out with her prep for Coppa Podio. And we're wrestling, you know, and I was like awake at 2 o'clock in the morning and like just thinking, but why am I retired? Like, why have I done this? If I'm totally able to help other people still prepare and I'm the go-to, like people pick up the phone to call me to go help them. I just sort of had this feeling like a couple of things came together. Like years and years ago, I used to be a smoker and, you know, my sister helped me quit by giving me this like one sentence that I clung to like a buoy in the ocean, you know, and it was, if you just don't have one more cigarette, like if you just don't have the next one, you're just no longer a smoker. And that's how I quit, right? So I just never had the next
how I
one.
quit,
like, really? That's cool.
Yeah, in my 20s, the thing was avoid the first cigarette. That was
just that one. Yeah. You don't have to like climb the mountain, you know, you just have to like just avoid that one that's coming. So, I sort of realized that like if I just don't do another comp, I'm retired. And it was something, is that like horror in the middle of the night that woke me up, you know, and I was just like, I just don't want to be like, I just don't want to be yet, you know. So in the middle of the night, I entered the Abu Dhabi trials, and I think that was the Monday morning at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the trials were the next Sunday, and I hadn't competed, and I was pretty out of shape. I wasn't fully back from injury. I'd actually hurt the other bicep. And then the next day I'm rolling with Hope, and she was asking me to do a certain guard pull because we knew that the woman that she was fighting would do that. And I did it, and I broke my toe, big toe. So I had a broken toe, and I'd entered my first comp since like, you know, almost 2 years because of the injuries and stuff. And it was my first comp, I think, at black belt. Yeah, it would have been. So all sorts of stupidity in that 2 a.m. Decision. I came back to Melbourne and was training with my coach, Martin Gonzalez, again, at Vanguard. And like I said to him also, I've entered the Abu Dhabi trials. And he was like, why? And I broke into tears, and I was like, because if I don't do another tournament, I'm retired. And, you know, and he was like, just like, you know, and he was quite like honest with me. He was just saying, you know, like, I've seen the best Jess Fraser, and currently you're not the best Jess Fraser, you know, like, and I can get you to any tournament you want in the world, but like, you give me 4 days notice is not the coolest, and you're injured, you know. And so I was all crying and like, oh, you don't believe in me. And he does believe in me. He was just like pretty hard to prepare for a comp in 4 days, you know. So we had 4 days to kind of get okay. And basically my game plan, like all the other ladies like had just done, like, you know, Megan had just done, so she just fought Mackenzie Dern at the Japan Abu Dhabi Grand Slam, ended up in the final with her. And I also was aware of Kate Wilson going to be at the trials too. So Kate Wilson was then a brown belt but is now a black belt. And she's incredible, you know, she's done really well internationally. I think she came second at Worlds as a brown belt, and just generally a really good competitor, like prolific competitor. I see her all over the place, Japan Open and that sort of stuff. So there was a bunch of women in the Abu Dhabi trials for me in Sydney because I'd missed the Melbourne one, teaching camp, and there was a bunch of women that were going to be a problem, you know, they're really good, like they're winning international stuff. So I sort of went into the Abu Dhabi trials using more strategy than I've ever used before. My style's very aggressive and requires a lot of athleticism, and I knew I didn't have the gas tank for it. So we just prepared essentially mentally about how I was going to do things. And basically my coach said, look, you know, you need to get okay with the fact that you're not going to bash these people. You're not going to win perfectly. You just need to win the matches. So I did exactly that. And I won the trials, which was insane. Like, it was just insane. Like, you go into this tournament unprepared, and it was a real risk for me emotionally and kind of ego-wise, you know, like, because I hadn't been dominated in matches in Australia before, and it was very, very real risk, just where I was at. And I think that if I had played like I usually played, I would have got beat up pretty good. So won the trials, and then sought out the advice of one of the guys. So I brought James Tomlinson to my camp last year. He's a strength and conditioning coach and also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I brought him into the camp in Melbourne to advise women on cross-training for jiu-jitsu, like cross-training, not like new gym, like cross-training, strength and conditioning and longevity in the sport. And I thought, okay, well, practice what you preach. If you're going to tell the ladies to listen to him, you should listen to him. So I sought out his services and we started working immediately on preparing for Abu Dhabi. And straight away, the things that he made me stop doing were some dietary things, but also he legitimately made me stop using the languaging of old and broken. Broken was the really big one that he was like, yep, no more. We don't speak like that because you're not old and you're not broken and we're going to medal at Abu Dhabi. And I was a bit like, whatever, I just want to turn up, like I'm not retired anymore. I'm excited. So when I got to him, my right bicep was in trouble and the left bicep, the long head, is actually missing. So I considered myself broken for sure, and he not only took me from injury to health, he took me beyond to the fittest I've ever been, and that was quite a process. And then we went to Abu Dhabi, and I would say for all of my jiu-jitsu career, I've been discussing myself, I've been discussing sort of belts in a way. I think there's like the belt, like there's the whole belt, and there's say there's all the blue belts here, and then there's a big gap, and then there's the competitors. They just feel different, but they're still blue belts. It's a weird thing. Like they're the top of that, and they're kind of a very different vibe to like the majority of blue belts, but they're not a purple belt. Like it's a weird thing. And all of my career, I've always said that I'm not here in the belt. I know I'm up here, but I think I'm the bottom internationally of this, and people will go, oh, yeah, no, you're better than that. Believe in yourself, whatever. I feel like I'm very realistic in my self-evaluation, and I was pretty certain that that's where I was internationally at every belt rank, including black belt, So my job was not to win, but my job was to prove that to myself. So I was certain that I wouldn't even hit the podium. And was terrified of allowing myself even to think that way, just mainly because I was scared of disappointment or having to redefine myself if I didn't. And that fear, I think, limits you in competition. You need to actually believe that you will win it and just deal with the fact that you might be disappointed if you don't, because a couple of tears is a lot better than limiting yourself, I think. So JT, James Tomlinson, that from Richmond Gym, that really got me back into a better headspace. He was really on to me about this stuff, and I'd never thought in this way before. So he was very on to me with that. He was on to me about thinking in a positive way. So there's a lot of stuff that, I thought I was like a realist or whatever, oh no, I understand where I'm going to come in the matches, and he kind of got me outside of that headspace, but he also, the stuff that I sort of wrote off as just motivational quotes, like things like only positive vibes, and I now know how essential they are. For me, there's only progress in joy, and he helped me move away from things that would make me feel really negative about myself or others, and just stop those things, and there was a lot of things that he was like no more bad vibes, just no more bad vibes, you've got to be happy, and that just literally saw me soaring, the fittest I've ever been, the best I've ever rolled. And I went to Abu Dhabi very prepared, crazy prepared. I was prepared for 15-minute matches, but it's Abu Dhabi's short matches, which is really suitable for somebody like me that's really well into Masters 2 or something. I don't know, I'm 38, 39 now. So I went over in the adults division, and I fought really well, and then hit Tammy Musumeci in the semi-finals, and I swept her, which I don't know whether has been done yet, so there was that moment of holy shit, oh my God, these people, they're exceptional, and they're kind of unbeatable, but the techniques are beatable. So if I can just get to my best spots, like, if you apply them, they work, you know. But if she gets there, it works on me too, you know. So I swept her, and then I made some bad decisions about where I went after that. And she berambola'd me. She's the best in the world at berambola. She took my back and then choked me, which, you know, I would love for that have not to have happened, but it was the first time that I realised that we could do this, like, and I can do this, and it's totally possible. So the cool thing in Abu Dhabi, so she went on to the final the next day against Bia Mesquita, and so, you know, incredible athletes, like the best in the world, and I just missed out. So the cool thing about Abu Dhabi is you go back into this new division. They create a whole new division for anybody that didn't get through to those two final spots. So you start a whole new comp, and I ended up winning that. So my bronze medal wasn't because I'd lost to somebody that won. I went into another comp and I won that little comp, and so that was on the big screen on the final day and stuff. So I got to be the first Australian black belt to go on to the final day, which was just the coolest thing, you know. Like, and so the difference between that, I'd been on that finals day before as a purple belt, and it was televised and stuff, and I had a panic attack from the first foot trip to the end of the match, and it took me like a year to be able to watch the match because I was just so, like, overwhelmed by it. It was very overwhelming, the cameras and all that kind of stuff. But I'm so glad I had that experience at purple, because then as a black belt, I just enjoyed every second, you know. Like, not only did I think I was going to retire last year, I was like standing there, like, even before the final day, you know, there was a moment where we're all standing in the dark with all the lights going and the drums going, and I was looking across and I could see Liv Glukowska waiting for her match, and I could see Lockie Giles waiting for his match, and it was just like we were these, like, just terracotta armies standing in the dark, just like, it was just the coolest thing. And then the music and the lights came up, and then the refs all did this all at once, and it was just like, there was that moment where I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. Like, this is awesome. And it was the first time in my life I enjoyed competition, because it was just so cool. Like, I've been terrified of competition and nervous and terrified of performance and all that kind of stuff in the past, but this thing was like just a celebration of all the years leading up, and like just all of it, you know, everything put in, and all the people that had helped me and stuff. And so I think that it really goes to show that, like, the joy really can bring the best out of you, you know. Like, so the final day was just awesome, and like cool things happened, you know. They announced me as Jess Fraser from New Zealand, and that made me think instantly of, like, my best mate in New Zealand who's been on this whole journey with me, Kirsty Mather, and she's just opened the first gym in the South Island, and I think in all of New Zealand, to be owned by a woman, owned and operated by a woman. And that just, like, so instantly, as soon as they said it, Jess Fraser from New Zealand, like, I was just in a great space, you know, like, because I thought of all these people I love, and they were there with me, and I knew that they'd be laughing watching the live feed, and it was just the coolest thing. And so Lockie Giles volunteered. He's from a different gym, you know, like, we don't train together, but he's from the same city, and he volunteered to be my coach from the sidelines. And so I was out there with people from Oz, and and then I won that match and the bronze medal. And if you've seen the video, it's just the happiest I've ever been in my life. And even talking about it now, it was just the coolest thing. It was just the coolest thing. I can't even put it to words how great it was. So, and it validated for me, like, you know, like I was talking about, like, there's the black belts, and then there's a gap, and there's the competitors, and I am the bottom of that. Like, and I'm good with that. Like, the girls that are at the top of that, I look up to, but I'm of them, you know. So it's just really validating, and just, yeah, I'm really happy about all of it. Liv Glukowska also won a bronze medal that weekend, and so with the first we're blazing trails. We did it blue belt, and now we are at black belt, so that's a pretty cool thing. And then off the back of that, I, like, kept momentum going, and I went to Worlds and did my first black belt Worlds, and I lost first round, but again, it was just, I just had so much fun, you know. Like, I there wasn't a whiff of nerves. It was just all about getting to, like, go roll with a woman that's real good at jiu-jitsu and see what happens. And I dominated the match, but lost some points, and definitely it's a strategy problem for me. I just want to fight and have fun, and I had reverted back to, like, just like wrestling, you know, and I just couldn't get a hook when I was on her back, and I could have been all right, but like good on her for protecting it, you know, like so her strategy was better and I might have been a bit more aggressive, but whatever. But I had a lot of fun. And then I decided to do No-Gi Worlds because I figured this was probably me peaking, you know, and 38 and finally at black belt, and I'd never done an international tournament in No-Gi and decided to do that. Mainly, like that choice was mainly because I'm moving into coaching for sure, and that's really where my future is. And I feel like the sport is moving in a direction, and I say the sport because I don't mean the martial arts side of it, but the sport is kind of moving in a direction of no-gi, and a lot of the people coming to the sport have done so because of the UFC and looking up things like Eddie Bravo's tournaments, and there's money in those tournaments and people are interested in no-gi, and I felt like I would limit myself as a coach if I didn't understand it more. So I took the gi off for 4 months and had probably the most challenging 4 months I've had on the mat since blue belt, like really frustrating. There was quite a few tears. Like it really took me back to that space of getting my ego smashed, you know, because there's a bunch of guys that I can handle fine in a gi that I couldn't in no gi. So that was really difficult and challenging in so many ways. Preparing for a 10-minute match at the age of 38, or several 10-minute matches in no-gi as well. Like, it's like, it's very physical, you know? So that was really hard. And I think that a lot of the fatigue really got to me as well. Like, it didn't really help my, like, headspace resolve. So prepared for that, and then went over in December and I did, like, kind of a deload at Victory with Dean Lister and Jocko and stuff, and that was really cool. And Dean Lister is like one of the most giving people on the mat. Like, he just helped me out so much, and he could see that I was struggling with performance anxiety, and it was like, I think you should just put a gi on, like just come down here and have fun. Like, it's just the coolest thing to have this legend saying, just chill out, Jess, like don't worry about it, like it's just another match, you know. And so that really helped me. He showed me some really cool stuff, made my game a bit more broad as well, and I'm working on that stuff now. And, and then I went and I took third again. So it's really proven to me that, like, there's some elite women, and I just think that they're, like, crazy, crazy, crazy good. I'm hanging with them. I'm not beating them, but I'm there. And that in gi and no gi is sort of proven in a year that I thought I had retired. So I'm really happy. I'm like, I couldn't be happier, and it's changed my view of myself and what's possible in the sport. And it's been a big year since I saw you.
That's awesome. And you keep referring back to the mind thing, like, and that's sort of the one, you know, like, you're obviously capable of all the achievements that you've got, but there's this pattern that you keep talking about. You know, your mind's playing tricks on you, and you know you're talking about you're broken, and you know the age thing, you know, all this mental stuff going on.
Yeah.
So you find that being the hardest thing with just jiu-jitsu and everything in life, just really managing that the mindset to actually take you to where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the hard thing is identifying it, you know. I didn't even know I was using that language. I had no idea. I kept saying it, and I listen back to the podcast and I hear it, and it's like, it's shocking to me how often I did it. And sometimes it takes, you know, like somebody on the outside to say, hey, like you really need to pull up on that stuff because it's not great. It's like, you know, I'm now, like, I'm really moving as many people as I can away from things like white belt spaz. Like, I'm just not into the language of it. Like, we just use different language at our gym, you know, like, don't be a potato. Like, it's totally inclusive language, and it helps not shame people, and just, like, bad language can be really powerful, you know. And I know that there's a heap of people that, like, call me out for being PC police, or like, oh, like, you can't say anything these days. But it's powerful, you know. Like, if I keep telling myself that, like, I'm a spaz, like, what a horrible thing to say, you know, or somebody else is. And just the way that we see ourselves you are what you repeat in behavior, like, and that you are what you practice, like, so it's important that you practice positive thought and process if you want to do well. Like that, for me, I feel like it's essential. I couldn't have done what I did without like understanding that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big balance, right? Because you can't just have the positive mindset and do squat on the back end. But I mean, I'm having this conversation with quite a few people in our Martial Arts Media Academy program, which helps the school owners with the lead generation and so forth. And the conversation's always going. The focus is always on failure, and it's just I've spot the conversation with a few people. It's a very negative outlook towards themselves and their results, and a real skewed version of, I guess, taking it very personally. Very small obstacles, turning it into big things, and then reflecting that onto themselves for the failure. And I mean, it's really hard to get that message across. But my message, in simplicity, was, no one's ever been successful thinking of failure. You can't be looking there and expecting to go there.
Totally.
It's two opposite sides of the coin.
Exactly. Years ago, when I tried to play ice hockey, a really simple statement from the coach is you've got to look where you want the puck to go, not at the puck. Yeah. So like that self-reflection, like, don't be the puck in front of you, like, look at the goals and that sort of stuff. And I really used to write that stuff off. I think my cynicism or something wouldn't allow me to let that in. And I see it now, and it is powerful. It helps. Everything helps, like if the difference between me and being in a final with these women, potentially in the future, if I could, if the difference is that, why not just try it? Like it's just not going to hurt anything, and it's not going to make you exhausted in any way, like it's not having to do sprints. It's like something that you can do without it being a cost to you or anyone else, and it worked for me. Like, I don't know, like, might as well try.
Yeah. Well, important that you also mentioned that you had sort of this fail-safe thing happening, that you want to be realistic because you don't want to be disappointed as well. So you don't want to put it's almost like you're holding yourself back, right? Because you don't want to put yourself out there like in the mindset that I'm going to win this and I'm going to win this, and then you don't, and then you're crushed afterwards.
Yeah. But
then
some people do. Yeah, some people do, and I see like a lot of affirmations and stuff, and like people writing that sort of stuff, and that's cool. Like whatever they need to do to get that positive thought patterning in, of thinking as if they can win it. Like there's some people that are just like, I think that I am a winner, so and I believe. For me, I'm not there yet. I don't know how to think that way. But what I needed to do was just not block myself, and so. I'm thinking more in the way of, it is possible for me. It is possible. If I do everything right, this is possible, and the way that, like, for some reason, I think in Abu Dhabi I had this, like, it was like my ears equalizing, like popping to like logic of like, oh, like I have 50% chance of winning this thing tomorrow. Like tomorrow when I go, and this was even before the final day, but like I had like nerves going over or whatever, and just going into the division, I was like, but one of us is going to win that match. I just got to do everything in my power to make it be me. And if that's not enough, that's cool too, like, and so the first day of getting into the final, or into the, like, kind of into the bronze medal match on the finals day, that's what like cleared it for me. It was like, oh wow. And it was like a real realization, and finally believed it and understood it, of like, well, one of us is going to get what we want tomorrow. Just make it be you, And then when I went to the finals day, which, like, of course you're trying to get some sleep, and you're just like freaking out because it's the first time an Aussie's done it, at black belt. And the thing that I ended up phoning my sister and just saying, like, I'm kind of terrified of letting myself think that it could be me, like, and she was like, what? Just think that way, just do it. Like, or allow it, And I remember the moment of just like, it was really emotional for me, just like, oh my God, like I might actually get to have this. I might get to do something that I really wanted to do, and it's okay that I think that way, So We sort of get told a lot to be humble in this sport, and I think that I went, like, if there was like a grayscale of it, I think I went so far the other way of like never, like, I didn't want people to perceive me to be like cocky or whatever, you know. But now I realize, like, at some point you're gonna have to think that you're good at this thing, you know, like. And now, like, I really test myself, like, when I go and do seminars internationally. You know, like, I sort of start the seminar with that. It's like, my name's Jess Fraser and I'm good at jiu-jitsu. Like, I might not be good at life stuff, but I'm good at jiu-jitsu and I'm here to share that with you. Like, so, and I'm okay with it now. And I think that it's important for definitely the women in the room to hear me say that, and to say it just as a fact, not as a like woohoo, yay me, or anything weird. It's just, this is a fact. I'm good at it. I've proved it, you know, and I'm okay with it. So that's like part of my thing, you know, is like I have to keep repeating that language. Yeah.
So let's talk about your events, because I was on your Facebook profile, and I'll include this photo in the transcript with your permission, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's a picture of you with, how many people are at this event? I mean,
so it's 153 women from all over Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Indonesia, and Cambodia. And some international travellers that were already in Australia, so Germany and Switzerland and places like that. So they were lucky enough to get the timing right. It's 153 women in a hall on an island that I rented for us. So I booked a whole island this year, which is an island. Yeah, so a whole island, and it has no public access, so I had to charter a ferry for 153 people to get onto and arrive at the camp. And so I've got some drone footage around that's floating around, so you guys can see that if you want to have a look. I'm still in the throes of editing a lot for announcing the next year's one. But yeah, I started those camps in 2011, so this was my eighth, 8.5. I did a mid-year camp that was a little smaller in Melbourne. So yeah, that was my eighth one, and we had, I think, and I'm not meant to call them staff because of like contracting laws and blah blah, but like, think staff. I call them crew, right? So I had I had 20 crew this year. So we had 4 main coaches. We had something like 10 assistant coaches, and they're women that have attended camps before and are elite athletes in Australia and from Hong Kong as well. So they're moving into the senior coaching roles. So the cool thing about that is creating employment for women within the sport. And like, I'm not allowed to say employment, you know what I mean though, like contract work. So heaps of opportunities there. Those opportunities you can apply for and stuff. And we now have somebody like that is full-time contractor for running the merch store. So I've like outsourced stuff like that. So she ran that. A woman named Helena, who is just a godsend. She's amazing. She does like the whole thing for me. So she's actually working for AGIG now. So that's really cool. But yeah, 153 women are on an island for 3 days. We caught the ferry out there, and then just heaps of training and heaps of activities. So there's a lot of social activities for people to just have a good time. And it's kind of like this one was kind of like a music festival. There was so many crazy fun things to do, and like costume parties and just cool stuff, but a lot of training, you know. So people mainly see the photos of us like fooling around because those are the amusing ones, but there was something like 12 hours of contact with training over a 3-day period. So it's a lot of training, so that means that we need a lot of downtime and like splashing around in a pool and that kind of stuff. So it was incredible. I think it's the first time that that's ever happened, that somebody's owned a whole island for jiu-jitsu, and like, of course, for women. It was crazy. So 153 is pretty big. I was very proud of that one. A real success, yeah.
Why is there no Australian guys in gis doing a thing like this?
Yeah, I mean, this sort of like comes back to my, like, every year at camp I set an intention that is of course flavored by where I'm at in my own journey, and I like to share that with people. I'm very open about that sort of stuff. I like them to see like truly who I am and my ideals and stuff, and if they're aligned with that, that's cool, and if they're not, that's cool too, you know. And so my over the last like 2 years, there's been quite a bit of backlash against like feminism just generally. People think it's a dirty word or like a bad movement or something, and I think there's some confusion about what it is and what we're trying to do. And I think there's some confusion when it comes to Australian Girls and Geek, and like guys going, "Oh, that's sexist," and it's like, well, it's sort of not. And like to help people understand that. Is like kind of wrapped up in my theme for the year. So every year I set a theme for the AGI camp, and I try to get it to flavour the year ahead for all of the Australian Girls and Geek members. So in the past we've done things like tackling comparison envy and just not comparing yourself to other women, nor trying to drag them down, as a way to balance that for yourself. You know, celebrating women. Like, you know, one of our intentions was like become her biggest cheerleader. And it's very easy, like once you see somebody that you're jealous of, it's very easy to become her biggest fan, and it actually eases it for you, you know. So we've done that sort of thing, body acceptance. We've done learning how to learn, all this kind of stuff. And this year, because like people have been approaching me about this thing of like, well, but it's not fair. It's only for women, and that shouldn't be allowed, and that's not legal, and all this kind of stuff. And it is. And what we're doing is celebrating the women that are already in the sport. So we're not saying that men, we don't want to be divisive or divisive, I don't know the word, in any way. I don't want to create a divide. I truly don't want to. I don't do it in my own academy, so I don't want to take that into the community. But the idea is to celebrate the women that are already in the sport and to like encourage them to stay, so they can like move into, like, stay long enough to move into roles of leadership and community development and all this kind of stuff, you know. So, and then make it truly an equal sport, so, or an inclusive sport, you know. So the idea for me, like, we were just talking about the punk posters on my wall, is like I started thinking about the Riot Girl movement of the 1990s, and Kathleen Hanna, who is the lead singer of Bikini Kill, sort of started this thing called Riot Girl. And basically, you know, like at gigs, it wasn't about like making sure the men left or anything, but she did say this statement of just girls to the front. And she was like, I'm serious, guys, like girls to the front, like just bring them to the front. Let's just prioritize them within the community and then celebrate them. And that's cool. Like, that's totally cool. We're not trying to create a divide. We're trying to create more celebration of people that are involved. And that's totally what AGIG is. And it's totally what the camp was about. So I asked them to be those girls to the front this year and to fill the space, you know, and to create within the community. So I'm really asking of them, rather than to just be participants, to start creating, like start making jiu-jitsu art, start like making montages, like learn how to be a videographer, learn how to be a coach, learn how to run a kids event, you know. Like I think that like some people are a bit scared to take up the space in women's jiu-jitsu in Australia, because they feel like AGIG's a bit of a juggernaut. But I'm like really sort of saying like, but I want you to, like, I want to attend an event, you know. Like I don't do kids camps or anything. I don't do that sort of stuff. Like I focus on adult women. Like I'm celebrating the adult women that are in the sport, because I want them to stay and I want them to foster the kids, you know. So foster their development or whatever. So it for me, like that's what the flavour of this camp is, and it's really well, that's what the theme of the camp was. And the year ahead, I'm hoping that they're really inspired and they do this stuff. You know, like one of my mates just wrote a jiu-jitsu rap song, and he's doing really well. That's JT, my strength coach, you know. So seeing that sort of stuff, like I just want more of it, and I want more from the women, you know, because I don't believe that the community is set in stone with how it can and should be. I believe that it's a malleable thing, and if we want a space that's all inclusive, we have to create it that way. And just simply being a participant doesn't change anything. Like you can't kind of, you know, be a participant. Sorry, my battery's just dying. You can't really oh, are you there? Oh, sorry.
Cool.
Sorry,
yeah, cool.
my battery is dying. Yeah, so you can't really be a participant and complain about how it's being run if you haven't offered up energy and alternatives, you know. So that's what I'm asking of the community this year, and to help explain to a lot of people what I'm trying to do. Like I just genuinely am so excited about men in the sport as well, but this just happens to be where I've focused for my business, you know, and my life. So yeah, like
I think it's awesome.
Whole range. Yeah, that's awesome. You know, like, and so for me, the whole range, like even like the merch and stuff this year has a punk flavor to it, and there's a reason for it. Like it's to remind the girls daily, like, be a mat punk, you know, fill the space. And, you know, like back in the day we used to make fanzines, you know, and I'm just not seeing that in this community. Like I'd love to see more blogs, and I'd love to see more podcasts and that sort of stuff, and that it be women, just not just always a male voice. And that's not to say that the male voice isn't worthy and like totally exceptional, you know, like I totally see that, you know, but it's just I want more. There's no, it won't detract from men if we add. It won't at all, you know, like, so that's what I'm asking with Australian Girls and Gi, you know.
That's awesome. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I think it's awesome for the sport. I think,
Thank you.
like you answer, you give answers to questions that I would ask. And I think that, you know, your vision and creativity, it does a lot more good than it would do or any divide or any harm. You're simply making it okay for ladies to step up and do jiu-jitsu where they might not have felt comfortable in a dominant, in a male-dominated sport to do that. So just a few more questions for you. So where we headed with Australian Girls and Gi, and also which events are coming up, depending, of course, when the listener listens to this podcast. But what do you see happening in the near future?
Well, some cool things have happened. I got like a lot of advice about moving forward. And last time I spoke to you, I was saying I try not to focus too much on the competitions. And I sat down with some mentors, and we looked at like my strengths and weaknesses and just got really realistic about that. And my strengths are definitely in community and like hands-on, like physically rolling with people. Like I love doing that. And things like the competitions were exhausting me, and they weren't my forte, you know. Like I've always run good comps, but it's just not where my heart was. So I've actually taken on Hope Douglas, who is a brown belt in Sydney, and she's, along with her partner Ari, they've taken the Australian Girls and Gi comps. So they've created a whole season. They do an Australia-wide tour in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, and Perth. So that autumn tour is coming up, and so it's essentially a circuit for comps, and I'll be looking at like kind of overall winners and rewarding that in a certain way from the community side of Australian Girls and Gi. So that's now her baby. It's sort of like it's got a lot to do with me because I sort of started it, but it's now completely hers, you know, and she's running with it. And where I'm really proud of that is not only that Australian Girls and Gi offers tournaments for women, so definitely girls and teens and masters now. We've got a masters division, really get to have matches with other women. It's been handed over to someone. So I've also created an opportunity for Hope to be able to fund her overseas travel to go on to compete and that sort of stuff. Like I can't afford personally to sponsor her, but I can create that kind of opportunity, and she's really run with it. It looks incredible. She does a better job than I ever did, and I'm just really happy about that. Like that's what I wanted, is to create more opportunities for women, and I feel like if I tried to do it all, I was sort of getting in the way of that. So it's really nice to be able to see that happen and flourish. So she's doing that. There's all of those tournaments are on the Australian Girls and Gi website, which is just australiangirlsandgi.com, and also on our Facebook page. So the Facebook page has got all the events listed as Facebook events, and that's a really easy way to keep up to date for that. So they're coming up. I'm running things like the open mats in a bunch of different areas, but there's also some other women taking on the open mats too. So Gina Albisi in Wollongong, she's a black belt as well, and she's going to start running some open mats in the Illawarra. under the banner of Australian Girls and Geese. So again, really like introducing her to the community and sharing that one out, like outsourcing. So I can really focus more on the camp. So the open mats I will do, like where they're easy for me to do. I'm going to try and do an East Coast series. I've just got like a whole bunch of gyms applying for or expressing their interest to host. So hopefully we'll work like from Cairns all the way down and do like a whole month of open mat series and some seminars. So what I do is I do an open mat in that area and use that essentially as a crowdsourcing fund, like a little pool of cash to afford me to be there. And then I usually spend a couple of private lessons with the most senior woman there that's the leader in that area. So it's like a train the trainer kind of situation where like the people that come to the open mats, it's like a $30 open mat, but say there's 30 of them, they then fund upskilling the local female leader, which just has a great on-flow effect. And then once we've done that a couple of times, we sort of move her into a leadership role as well. So from Australian Girls and Geese. So she might become an assistant coach at one of the camps or whatnot. So it really is sort of, we've got like a process now that we can upskill everybody. Everybody gets something out of it, and it's all positive, and it all moves forward. So that's happening. But I've just announced my first mixed camp, which is a really big deal, and I'm absolutely terrified, but I have faith it will work. So the girls at the camp, I was saying to them, I really need you to fill the space this year and be creative and do things that like feel uncomfortable, because great things come out of it. And I felt like I couldn't say that without doing that myself. So my mid-year camp in July that's held in Melbourne CBD, just next to the zoo there, and is an on-site camp. Like there's accommodation and food and stuff. So it's more for people Melbourne people can come, but it's more for people to come down to Melbourne for a full-on like jiu-jitsu intensive camp. So it will be mixed. It's available. It's open to like men, women, children, anyone that wants to come. Children obviously have to come with supervision. But the idea behind that is that for every ticket sold to a male, there needs to be a ticket sold to a female. So I'm doing a 50-50 ratio just to keep that women to the front sort of theme going. So it's not just for men, but it's also not just for women. So it's for everybody, and that's my goal for that one. And it is a massive risk because I've never done it before, but I got to try. And if it works, we'll keep doing it. And if it doesn't, okay, I tried. Like that's the whole point. And so that's in July, and I have booked the dates for the huge camp, the summer camp for women only. So that is like all of this is on the Facebook page. I'm still trying to build the website side of it, because the website side of it is all the rego, so that'll go up shortly. But the camp will be the weekend before Australia Day in January, and it's at an even better venue. Like I don't want to give too much away because it's just so incredible. Like I just can't even get my head around it. But yeah, that will be like last time we had an island. This time we have Agig Beach. Like we have if you could see this thing, it's so astounding, and I can't wait to release that to everybody as news. But of course I need to build up momentum for the mid-year camp before I kind of really push the camp next year. So that's happening. I've also got a camp in Bali, as I always do every year. So mid-year camp, that's the first week of August essentially, and that's one of those camps that like we all hang out together and we do everything together, and we go surfing and stuff, and we'll go and like celebrate down the bars and stuff, and really explore Bali. But you organise your own accommodation and travel, because it's just because everyone likes different tiers of travel. Like I personally just like to sort of have what I have here but over there, whereas other people are like, I'm in Bali, I'm going to live like total pimp styles, like, and other people are like, I want it to be as cheap as possible. So I just don't want to make those decisions for people. So at the moment it's a 6-day intensive training camp, so 2 hours a day with me, plus you can do any of the Bali and May classes, but I find that people are pretty exhausted, and we'll just go through a whole series. Like we'll do workshops every day, essentially looking not at like specific technique, but it'll be like a submission series, a passing series, whatever, like so more of a workshop around those ideas. And because it's a smaller group, that's more like kind of in the realm of 30 people, whereas the other camps are like over 100. I can actually workshop ideas with people. So if I've got someone that turns up that only plays deep half and I've got somebody that only plays De La Riva, we can actually just look at the concepts of guard in the workshop, and then the next day concepts of passing and that sort of stuff, so everybody benefits. And that's much more like me, that's really me coaching, whereas the overnight stay camps is a broad range of elite coaches that, it's different. So it's more like they're more like sort of seminars that all work together. So the camps, like the way that we structure it is we actually split the group into two, and I will be moving into splitting the group into three just so we can get less people on the mat, more people at camp. But basically what happens is so this year, for instance, I was teaching open guard passing to one half of the room, and Jean was teaching open guard, on the other side of the room. And so for 45 minutes or an hour, no, it's a lot, that's light. Hour and 15, you're doing the technique. So it's like sort of this group's doing this group's doing this. So for an hour and 15, and then we do 45 minutes of rolls, and you have to roll with someone from the other group. So you get to rep out what you've just learnt immediately. And then the next half of the day, we swap that. So you've actually learnt both sides and you've got to rep it out. And that's how the camps work. So people get a lot out of the camps because they're repeating so often the content, whereas a seminar, sometimes I find that you go to a seminar and it's like, oh, wow, that was awesome, and you don't remember anything because you didn't get a chance to apply it. So the camps are really great for actual content, and upping your skills. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Jess, it's been great catching up again. We're going to have to do this again in about, 30, 40 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe early next year.
Yeah, well, hopefully next time we talk, I'll be like, wow, the mixed camp was a total success. What an amazing thing. Yay, Australia. So, yes, fingers crossed on that one. I hope so. Yeah, I have faith, got to try.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all the show notes on all the pictures and all the video footage and things on this episode page. Just go to martialartsmedia.com and just look for the blog link or the podcast link, and you can go from there. And if people want to get hold of you, jessfraser.com?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Or anywhere through Australian Girls in Gi, you can find me, and if I personally don't get the messages, there's women that are moderating the groups that will pass it straight on to me if you attention it to me. Also anything that's koala jiu-jitsu, so that's an easy way to remember me and find me, whether it's Instagram or whatever.
Fantastic. Awesome, Jess. Great catching up. I'll speak to you soon.
See you.
Awesome. Cheers.